The latest betting odds, okay, from sportsbetting.ag. The next coach fired in the NBA, plus 200 odds. Chauncey Billups on that list.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of these odds are made up.
Darvin Ham, Steve Clifford in Charlotte, Monty Williams in Detroit, Quinn Snyder in Atlanta, Billy Donovan in Chicago.
That's how you know that they're made up right there.
Taylor Jenkins in Memphis.
Is that those last three, there is a 0% chance of them getting fired.
I will say that they are plus 1,200, plus 2,500, and plus 3,300, whereas Chauncey's plus 200, Ham is plus 250 along with Steve Clifford.
I would put Clifford at the top of that list.
Steve Clifford, Charlotte Hornets.
He is basically throwing his hands up in the air, and Mitch Kupchak has moved into a senior advisory role.
Yeah, when that shift starts, then you're sitting there going,
well, the new GM is going to want their coach. Like, that's ultimately how I think this is going to go.
That's how you do it.
I have received zero indication that the Blazers are considering any kind of change in the coaching in the head coaching seat.
Okay, so for the Chauncey haters, it's not you.
Look, I checked in even during that road trip, and I got nothing.
Okay. Like when it was at its worst.
And
when they're losing by 50.
60. 62.
62. Yikes. This season's been bad. Blazers have a really tough schedule, so it's not going to get better for them either.
No, they have a tough schedule down the stretch, and I'm looking at the rest disadvantage games they kind of have coming up. And well, there's a chart that's out there. Positive Residuals is somebody who does some very, 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 very cool work in data viz across sports analytics, and he shows kind of as the schedule goes, by month a game like a normal calendar, but it also tracks advantage and disadvantage via rest. The Blazers basically the entire month of March are in the red, and that is because number one, they're on the road. Number two, their rest is disadvantage, meaning that the team that they're playing has more rest going into the game. Now they don't have it a ton. I think they only have one, and that's early March. One real 2 to 3 day rest disadvantage game. That's against the Timberwolves, which
they were going to win anyways.
Yeah,
I saw them play 2 games against them, and one they kept tight for a while.
Well, they played the one on the road where they got smacked.
No,
after
2 back. I'm just saying 2 back to back like a week ago.
Oh yeah,
where they got
and they're really
pumped.
good. They're really good.
They are.
I wondered about that team because there's something to be said about seeing a team in person. Like you watch all the tape, but when you see them in person, you're like, okay, let me kind of see what the adjustments look like live.
Chris Finch has done an incredible job
has.
Getting those guys. Some guys have the questions have been, Ant Edwards, how much does he actually love and care about basketball? Mm-hmm. Karl Anthony Towns, and this is going to be the big one. Can he get Karl Anthony Towns to engage when the lights are the brightest in the playoffs? Because that's where he's done his disappearing act.
One of the worst playoff all-stars of all time.
And that, to me, that's going to be the interesting one. Because he's gotten Ant Edwards to give a whole hell of a lot.
Oh, yeah. He's an absolute dude. I mean, both games against Portland, he was incredible. Rudy Gobert's back is healthy, and now he doesn't have to chase all the way out to three-point line and recover with no help. Because they have Jaden McDaniels, who's a defensive player of the year caliber defensive wing. Like, talking to Ant and JG about Jaden McDaniels, they're like, he's different. He's a legitimate 6'10". Like, he's terrifying defensively.
Lord.
He covers ground. We're going to be talking about him in 2 to 3 years, like I was talking about OG Anunoby early on, of like, guys, this is the best defensive wing stopper in the league. We're going to talk about Jaden like that.
That'd be awesome for Portland to draft one of those.
Are you really trying to trigger me right now?
Yes.
God.
But the reality is plus 200 on Chauncey being the next head coach fired. He does have the best odds of anybody, according to Vegas, to get fired next. Mm-hmm. I think there is a realization that here in Portland, with the fan base, is completely different than what the organization feels about Chauncey Billups.
And not only just the organization, the players.
The players as well. And we'll get to that because you did on Jack Ramsey's. Go check out on YouTube the Jack Ramsey's interview that you had with Ant yesterday. Not Ant Edwards, Anthony Simons. It was really good, and it shed a lot of light as to how the players are reacting to Chauncey Billups. Now, of course, a player is going to say, I got my coach's back, but we'll play a snippet of it for you guys a little bit later in the show. There is far more there.
There's different than, we're fine. It wasn't the
Jackson Smith and Jigba on
No,
on
and it wasn't
Shane Waldron.
the stamp of approval or a nod of endorsement.
It's a little bit deeper than that. And the reality of it is, if you think Chauncey Billups is the problem, he has got his warts. This team is not ready yet.
Yes,
and we are seeing growth out of them in this. Will he be the guy to get the Blazers over the hump? Maybe. And we can start those criticisms later. Because right now there is no coach in the NBA that is going to come in and take this over in a rebuild and say, yeah, I'm going to take this team to the playoffs this year or next year.
Yeah.
It's not going to that is not going to happen. So we could start these conversations a little bit later. But it does not appear Chauncey's on the chopping block anytime in the near future.
No, and if the Blazers are going to make a change, I think they might try to add somebody to his staff in the offseason. Like there's been you want to hear something insane in the NBA? There's been rumblings about Jamal Mosley in Orlando being fired.
But when you have a team that they've drafted, they've gone through the rebuild, they feel like they have a roster that's ready.
He's taken them through the steps that Chauncey is taking them through right now. Now you go get a veteran coach or whatever, which I think is entirely unfair because I think Mosley's done a great job with them.
They just can't shoot.
But yes, and that's, again, I think a roster problem as opposed to a coaching problem. But one thing to remember, or one thing to know, Jamal Mosley is Chauncey Billups' recruit at Colorado.
Oh.
When he came in for a visit, guess who led him on his visit?
Old Chauncey Billups.
So there's a very tight relationship there. So if that was a move that Orlando made, I wouldn't be surprised if the Blazers kind of went that way if Mosley didn't get a lead chair somewhere else.
Interesting.